All right, folks, let's get this show on the road. We got a lot of work tonight. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winnetka Village Council regular meeting for December 5th, 2023. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask everybody in the room to please mute your cell phones or other electronic devices. And Rob, could you do a roll call for attendance, please?
Thank you. Trustee Orsic? Here. Trustee Handler? Here. Trustee Dearborn?
Here.
Trustee Alvinson?
Here.
Dahlman?
Here.
President Rintz.
Present. I've asked Trustee Orsic to lead us this evening in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, quorum check.
There we go. December 12th meeting, Trustee Dearborn, I have being out. Anyone else planning on being away for that meeting? Okay, and then December 19th, it's the final meeting of the year?
You have me out.
Yes, right. And then for January, we'll be canceling the January 2nd regular meeting since it's so close to the holiday and there's still travel occurring. But we will be moving ahead, it looks like with January 9th, the 16th, and then the 2nd would be rescheduled to the 23rd.
You know I'm out.
I'm out, I do have that. I polled you on your dates, so I think you should be okay for that, so thank you.
Okay. All right, public comment. This is the time of the evening where anybody from the audience can come on up to the podium and address Village Council on any item that is not on this evening's agenda. Do we have any public comment this evening? Ed.
Hello, Ted Winnichenko. So, I should start my timer. So again, I'm here because of the Bertling sidewalk. So, unfortunately, as you all know, my request to get those meeting minutes from the closed meetings where it clearly appears that the council discussed a lot more than just setting a price for the property, to get you to release those, I have not prevailed, according to the public access counselor, essentially because they said that it was my lack of knowing that these secret meetings were going on I did not exercise reasonable diligence. I don't know if that's really true. If you look at the legislative history of this change in the Open Meetings Act, I don't think the PAC is doing it the way it should. So I'm here to ask, because, if this public body is speaking and working for the people, then 2 meetings 2 years ago, which discussed only setting a price for some land that has now already been, by ordinance, given away to private entities, there's no value in keeping those private, right? The idea behind a private meeting for setting a price is that you don't want to give a competitive advantage to the buyer by having them know what your intent is. But that's already gone. So if there's nothing to be ashamed of in those meetings, then I think that the meeting minutes and audio recordings should be released so that people can hear what the council discussed, because I think the evidence suggests that there was a lot more discussed than just setting a price, that the decision to release that land was made in closed session inappropriately. Now, I have lots of other things that I feel like I have to do. I'm excited. I've never filed papers in federal court. I'm going to do that next week. So there have been other things that have been kind of on my plate. But I'm debating whether I should ask the court for administrative review of this, because I don't think the PAC is applying the intent of the legislative change to the OMA. Having said that, I think it would be just much better if this council would say, hey, you know what? Those meetings are no longer necessary to be kept private. We did nothing that was inappropriate, so we should just unseal them. Just let the public know what we talked about during those 2 meetings. And then we would all save money, right? My tax dollars wouldn't go to pay the lawyer to defend you against an action. I wouldn't have to waste my time. It just seems like it would be the right thing if there's nothing to be ashamed of in those closed sessions. So I would ask, please let the public know, what did you guys discuss? What was discussed in those sessions? Why did you choose to sell the sidewalk or give away the sidewalk? But if not, I have, I think, 60 days. I'll think about it.
Thank you, Ted. I did want to clarify one thing. This village council does not hold secret meetings. That every meeting that we conduct, whether it's open or a closed session meeting, is appropriately noticed. And the reason for going behind closed doors is noticed when we do so. Anybody else like to speak this evening? Come on up, Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz Kunkel. I live at 1303 Holly Lane. I am here as a resident and a citizen, and specifically not as a member of Go Green Winnetka or the Environmental and Forestry Commission. So a few weeks ago, a friend of mine in Highland Park forwarded me notice about a letter that I hadn't known about previously, and it's a joint statement that more than 30 communities in our area signed on to. It's called United Against Hate, Cities and Our Villages Collaborate to Protect Our Communities in Time of Strife. The first sentence reads, as suburban cities and villages across the region, we stand united behind a core shared value, the unequivocal condemnation of all acts of hate, period. Obviously, there's a lot of explanation behind that, but that's the gist of it. The cities and villages that signed on, as you may know, are Evanston, Highland Park, Highwood, Arlington Heights, Bannockburn, Carroll Stream, Deerfield, Flossmoor, Forest Park, Forest View, Glencoe, Glenview, Grayslake, Hampshire, Haynesville, Hazelcrest, Hoffman Estates, LaGrange Park, Lake Bluff, Lake in the Hills, Lincolnshire, Lincolnwood, Lindenhurst, North Barrington, North Riverside, Northbrook, Northfield, Palos Park, Richton Park, Skokie, Vernon Hills, Wadsworth, Wheeling, and Wilmette. What's wrong with that list? It should end with "and Winnetka." That's what I think. It's painfully obvious that we're just not on the list. It's not obvious why, but I hope that we can get on it. I hope there's nothing that's in this letter that we as a village or you as a council object to that prevents us from signing on to this joint statement that 30 of our neighboring communities and individual friends and residents and families have signed on to. So I hope you will consider or reconsider. Again, I didn't know anything about this until a friend of mine let me know. So I hope the village council will consider signing on to this. Thank you.
Rob?
Certainly. Liz, thank you for your comments. In fact, Winnetka has already signed on, and essentially it was an issue of timing. Some of the communities have moved forward before. There was a decision made at a council of government that we weren't attending at that particular time. We found out about it a little bit late and only had a couple of days to sign on. It didn't mean that we weren't going to. So we did sign on. We also passed the Cook County Resolution Against Hate in October. So, and that will be amplified in this week's e-news. So there was never an intent not to participate. It was just a timing issue. Yep.
Thank you very much.
All right, anybody else like to speak this evening? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment period and we'll move on. All right. Next item is reports. First is trustees. We'll start with Bridget.
No report.
Kim?
No report.
Bob?
No report?
Kirk?
No report.
Tina?
No report.
We're moving right along. Village attorney?
No report tonight.
Village manager?
I would like to report that Tala Coffee had a soft opening last week, and the business has been brisk. I stopped in there with David on Friday, and it was really fun to see him in action. Stopped back over, I think, one of our Staff members went on Saturday, I went again on Sunday, and they were very busy. So we do plan a ribbon cutting with Tala, but there are a couple finishes that we're working on. One is the controller panel for the outdoor lighting. Our lighting hasn't, it just arrived, so we're going to be installing that and some fencing. So ribbon cutting should be coming shortly. But they look great.
Rob, can I ask a question on that? So the parking, we can park to the south along, and can we also park in the Indian Hill lot
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And-
during off hours.
during off hours?
Yeah, so during during normal commuter hours, you have commuter parking in the interior bays closest to the rail line, and on the exterior side is new Trier parking, but you can park there on the weekends and evenings.
Okay, and Village President. Two things this evening. The first is I had the great fortune to light the Christmas tree on last Friday, and there were many, many hardy citizens who came out despite the rain, and a lot of younger Winnetkins who helped me pull the plug or pull the trigger. And the tree lit, even though it was raining, and it was awesome, and Santa came, and everybody who arrived there had a really, really good time. Thank you for the Park District for all the hard work you guys did as well. It was a really nice collaborative effort. The Chamber of Commerce did a great job as usual, and village staff were real troopers given the weather conditions we were dealing with. And secondly, I just wanted to mention that I believe Friday is the first night of Hanukkah this week, and I wanted to, Oh, sorry. Thank goodness I have Peter Friedman here to correct me. I thought it was third Friday. I'll take your word for it, Peter. All right, Thursday. Anyway, happy Hanukkah to all those who celebrate. I apologize for that. And I will show you the website that I just looked at that said Friday. So even when you try to do the right thing, it's, Anyway, happy Hanukkah to those that celebrate. All right, item 6 here is establishment of the consent agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the agenda?
So moved.
Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll have the village clerk read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of the warrant list dated November 17th, 2023 through November 30th, 2023 in the amount of $2,439,769.21. Item B, fiscal year 2024 village budget, resolution number R98, 2023, adopting the annual budget for fiscal year beginning January 1, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2024. Resolution number R99, 2023, amending general building and miscellaneous service fees. Resolution number R100, 2023, establishing rates and fees related to utility services. Ordinance number MC11, 2023, amending Title 15 of the Winnetka Village Code concerning building permit fees and bonds. C, property tax levy and abatement ordinances. It's number M14, 2023 tax levy for adoption. Ordinance number M16, 2023, abating the tax heretofore levied for the year 2023 to pay the principal of and interest on taxable general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2020 of the Village of Winnetka, Cook County, Illinois. Resolution number R101, 2023, waiving competitive bidding and approving the purchase of police dash cameras from Axon Enterprises Incorporated. Resolution number R102, 2023, approving change order number 2 with A-Lamp Concrete Contractors Incorporated for the 2023 street rehabilitation and public improvement project. Resolution number R103, 2023, approving funding authorizations and change order number 1 to the contract with Maple Cable Construction Incorporated for directional boring work. Resolution number R104, 2023, approving a second amendment to a lease agreement between the Village of Winnetka and the United States Postal Service. And resolution number R105, 2023, approving a collective bargaining agreement between the Village of Winnetka and the Winnetka Police Association, Metropolitan Alliance of Police, Winnetka Chapter 54 for adoption.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Rob. Now you all know why I asked the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Handler.
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
Trustee Albinson.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Orsick.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on, item 8 is ordinances and resolutions. The first one is ordinance number MC 12, 2023, amending Title 16 of the Winnetka Village Code and Chapters 17.30 and 17.50 of the Winnetka zoning ordinance regarding lot consolidation. This is up for introduction. A public hearing on the ordinance has been advertised for tonight's meeting. At the November 14th study session, council continued to discuss zoning and development regulations regarding properties located on or near the bluffs along the lakefront. Tonight, council will consider amendments to the village code and zoning ordinance regarding special use permits related to multiple lot consolidations. The public hearing is now open. Community Development Director David Schoen is here to review.
President Rintz and trustees, just to quickly summarize the proposed ordinance. The amendment states that the consolidation of any number of lots that results in a single-family residential lot that is greater than 2 times the required minimum lot size for the lot in question, or greater than 2 times the minimum average lot width of the lot in question, are only permitted by special use permit. In addition to needing to demonstrate compliance with our general special use standards, the council is to consider other factors when they'll consider such an application, including characters of properties located adjacent to or on the same block face of the subject lot. I'm not going to read these, but these are the additional special use standards that would be considered as part of the process, and they're included in your staff report. The ordinance also identifies that the council may place conditions on its approval of such lots of consolidation. It lists some in the ordinance, but the council can list additional conditions if it should wish to. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for David at this point? Seeing none, I will open up the microphone to public comment. Would anybody like to speak on this item? Come on up, Hale.
Thanks, David. I thought it would be helpful to put down in writing my thoughts instead of rambling as I usually do. As you know, why don't I do this? If I could just read this to you, it's not that long. I think I can stay under 3 minutes. Dear President, this is regarding the lot consolidation issue, and as I say in the opening paragraph, I've appeared before you before and indicated that I represent a number of the lakefront property owners. So I'm submitting this to you, on behalf of those clients. As I say in the second paragraph, I believe generally that the majority of the property owners I represent don't have an issue with the goal that you seek to achieve with the lot consolidation ordinance, as Chris explained at the November 14th study session. However, we do have a number of questions that we'd respectfully ask you to consider before you adopt any ordinance. Those questions include the following. And just prefatory, I've communicated with some of my clients. Some of them I haven't even been able to reach because they were out of town for Thanksgiving. But in any event, and I've asked them for surveys to understand the implications of the ordinance for what they own. And I haven't gotten those from everybody. Number one, in his staff memorandum, David says that, quote, all the lots in the community with steep slopes are zoned in the R2 district. However, not all lots zoned R2 are located along the lake. A significant number of lots are located in southwestern and western Winnetka. Enclosed is a copy of the village's zoning map. I would respectfully suggest that before you vote on the adoption of any ordinance, you consider getting answers to the following questions. A quick review of the zoning map reveals that the R2 lots along the lakefront, by and large, do not compare to the R2 lots located in the southwestern and western Winnetka. That being the case, why should the lakefront lots be treated in the same manner by the new regulations? This is, as I was mentioning earlier before the meeting started, it's akin to what you did with respect to the recently adopted lakefront overlay or preservation overlay district that you established for public properties along the lakefront, even though you have public properties elsewhere in the village. Like that situation, I understand the lot consolidation issue is village-wide, but there are differences in some of these lots, many of these lots on the lakefront, that in my professional opinion calls out for a closer look and possibly some tweaks, if you will, to the regulations. B, how many of the lakefront lots are already greater than 48,000 square feet? And would the owners of those lots need to seek special use approval of a future lot consolidation without regard for how small the lot being consolidated is and irrespective of the owner's purpose for pursuing the consolidation? For example, if you look at David's memo, you can see there are a lot of lots that are already way over 48,000 square feet. Some of them are 2 acres, 2.5 acres. And as noted in the next paragraph, the question is, what happens if they want to consolidate another lot they own that is not that big, or this is in the next paragraph, I talk about, should the village council modify the ordinance to address the potential consolidation of privately owned properties which are already greater than 48,000 square feet? For example, for these lots, should the requirement be something different, 2.5 times, 3 times? The reason I say that is really summarized again, and I was already heading there in paragraph D. You heard at the study session, one resident stood up and said to you that many of the lakefront property owners already own 2 or 3, I think she said double or triple lots. Several of my clients do. And so the question is, if one of those lots is either below the 22,000 square foot minimum, and this will put them over the limit, or if it's already over 48,000 square feet and the owner wants to consolidate that lot with one of the other lots that it owns, and the situation is not uncommon up and down Sheridan Road, that other lot may have a coach house on it or another house. Shouldn't the owner be allowed to consolidate the lots into a single lot of record and take advantage of the benefits of doing that without having to go through the lengthy special use approval process? For example, I have one client in this situation who does own 2 lots. One of them's improved with a lot, and they're talking about, and they've talked about knocking down a structure that's on the other lot and using it to build a driveway and just create more open space, green space for the lot. Should that party have to go through the special use process? I don't think so. My second question relates to what David just put up on the screen about the standard typical special use conditions and the subsequent conditions. I think, again, in my opinion, and I've handled a few hundred special use cases over my career, isn't the need to go through the traditional special use approval process, which requires a prove-up of the 6 standards David just had up on the screen. In my opinion, it is a little overkill. Shouldn't a lot consolidation applicant really only have to prove up what is identified on the last or second to last page of the memo or of the ordinance, draft ordinance, as an additional consideration and standard? That is whether the proposed new lot would be inconsistent with the general lot size, average lot width, or character of properties located adjacent to or on the same block face of the subject lot. And then I made reference to, what President Rintz specifically said at the study session, which was basically that. That's what the goal is, which is to preclude the construction, really, of a home that's really out of character with the neighborhood. And I can tell you, I've appeared before the village over the years, not very often, but on cases where, Chris, you were talking about, west of Village Hall, where people have sought to consolidate a couple of lots. And I've had discussions, I think it was with the zoning board at that time, which goes to my very last paragraph, where the discussion took place about, okay, well, if you consolidate this, you know, you could do this. How do we know you're not going to build a house that's too big? And what will you agree to? And the property owner has agreed to limits, which is consistent with those additional conditions that David had up on the screen at the end, which neither I nor any of my clients have any problem with those additional considerations or potential conditions to put on a potential approval. And that's what's referred to in my very last paragraph. When I did this before, and it's been a number of years since I did it, I had to satisfy, or my client had to satisfy this standard. This is in your zoning ordinance already, that when you go before the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variation and you're pursuing simultaneously a lot consolidation, you have to produce evidence that the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. So, in my opinion, that's really the only issue. And to say that somebody who wants to consolidate lots, some of which they may already own, has to go through the special use process, the standard typical special use process, which might mean having to hire an appraiser, which might mean having to bring in a traffic expert. Like I said, I think it's overkill. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I appreciate your letting me talk and probably go over my 3-minute allotment, but I appreciate it. And what I'm really looking for is, you know, your thoughts on this and whether or not it's possible for and worthwhile for me to talk to your attorney and David about this over the next week or so. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Hal. Just so we're all clear, I mean, obviously the 251 Sheridan situation has heightened everybody's awareness of what can happen, and a lot of things relative to that have happened. You know, like you say, you represent a client who has 2 or 3 lots. Well, they might have no intention of doing anything with them, but now we know that there are people who are very interested in owning lakefront property and purchasing multiple properties, combining them into one, and then gaining the benefit of an FAR that would provide a 68,000 square foot home. So these are the sort of things that we as trustees and you know, are wrestling with on this, and trying to make sure that we have some opportunity to control those. I don't think that anybody in this community would find our Zoning Board of Appeals and our Plan Commission to be unreasonable people who are understanding of an individual's plight in any of these conditions. And I think part of this is a mutual trust between the general public and the village council that, you know, appropriate requests will be addressed appropriately. But if we have somebody building, you know, a 5-acre lot on Lake Michigan, which is the assemblage of 3, 4, 5 different properties, that's going to be a difficult discussion for everybody to have.
Right. I understand that, but I do think you've had provisions in your ordinance and you've done amendments that say that maybe this particular provision doesn't apply to people that are in a particular situation as of the date of the adoption of this ordinance. Mm-hmm. So, for example, one of my clients who's in a situation like I described, they wouldn't have to consolidate them themselves or go through that process to take 2 lots and make it 1 for themselves, and maybe it's if they're doing X, Y, or Z only. But if it were sale to a third party and it was going to create a new lot that didn't exist as of today for different purposes, then it should apply. I mean, there are provisions in your ordinance that will basically grandfather, you know, a situation. And I can just say, as a former member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, we were always reasonable.
Thanks, Al. Would anybody else like to speak on this issue?
Hi, Ted Wininchenko. I'll keep it under 9 minutes. No, I just wanted to say, you know, I hadn't planned on speaking on this, but while I appreciate the comments that were made, I see the ordinance as a framework for the village to consider these consolidations. You know, you don't want to be arbitrary and capricious, right? That would be bad. And so right now, there's no framework for when the village would step in and what kind of limits the village would, you know, consider these things. And, you know, the special use permit, I never had one, but can't imagine. But I'm sure that that is, you know, tailored to the situation. And if it is a situation where it's a simple thing and you want to have a bigger lot and you want to like put some more trees on it, then I'm sure that there won't be like traffic studies and things like that. But if it's someone that wants to build, you know, a 70,000 square foot structure into the side of the bluff, that would give the village a framework and the authority to step in and say, wait a second, we need to talk about this. So I think it's a reasonable compromise.
Thanks, Ted. Would anybody else like to speak? Seeing none, I will close public comment, and we'll bring it back up here. Any thoughts, comments, ideas? Go ahead, Tina.
Yeah, I appreciate Hal's comments. I guess one thing I want to just address is when you're, right now, as we sit today, the lot consolidation process does require a public hearing and consideration. So I don't think layering on a special use consideration for some, you know, the large lot consolidation, as we call it, it's going to add that much time. All it's going to do, you know, you've got two former Plan Commission chairs. All it's going to do is give more tools to legally consider some of the impacts to the surrounding neighbors. And it doesn't mean that just because heightened review is going to mean a denial. But, you know, it may require some additional conditions so that, you know, a 68,000 square foot house in the construction, which will go on for 3 or 4 years, that, you know, we have tools to consider that. Currently, under the lot consolidation criteria, yes, we can consider the size of the lot and the structure that's put on it in the context of the neighborhood, but it doesn't give us the ability to look at some of the other impacts. And so I think that this is narrowly tailored to address those concerns, right? It's not a straight out prohibition. It just gives us the tools for a heightened review, and I think in a legally appropriate way.
Others?
I agree with what Tina said. My notes are just, it's not overly burdensome. It's, you know, they're already halfway there. And so just having to meet those criteria is not usually a very burdensome action. So I think, as is, this is a good framework, as Mr. Winnichenko said, to get started.
Kim, anything?
No, I was just thinking, though, last night, we at the Landmark Preservation Commission, we heard a petition for a demolition by a man who owns the house he's in and the house next door. And one of the things we asked was, oh, well, if you're going to demo the house, are you planning on selling it? He's like, no, I just want to keep it for myself to add more green space to my property. And so someone asked, well, are you going to consolidate? He goes, no, I don't need to do that. I'm just happy having the two lots. And I think I saw, because I did a real estate tax analysis of all the people that own property along the lake, and did see there were like 10 or 11 who own a lot, and then they might own a sliver going down to the beach or another small parcel. And if they all haven't wanted to consolidate up till now, I don't know if there'd be a burning need that they would find, going back to this isn't onerous, and they wouldn't find this onerous should there come a day when they felt that was important to do for their own purposes. Mm-hmm. But if it's for a new purpose, as we talked about, a new buyer, then this is going to do exactly what Tina described, is that gives us the tools to evaluate it in that context. Right. So I think it's good.
I think that's a really good point, Kim, because the point is that you can own multiple lots right now, mm-hmm. right? But if you want to get a building permit from the village over multiple lots, that's what triggers, is I think, mm-hmm. the lot consolidation process. So it's, you know, if somebody wants to demo a house and have open space, they can continue to have 2 tax lots and not be forced to consolidate. So I think that's a really good point.
Others? Nope. All right. I will now close the public hearing. So I'll move on and ask if anybody is willing to make a motion to introduce ordinance number MC 12, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, next is item B, ordinance number M17, 2023, granting a variation from the Winnetka zoning ordinance to allow the construction of a pickleball court for an existing residence within the R2 single-family residential district. This is for introduction. Council will consider a request from the applicant allowing the construction of a pickleball court at 889 Sheridan Road. And David's here to brief us on this one as well.
Yes, the subject property is shown here on the aerial. It's located on the northeast corner of Sheridan and Tower Roads, next to the Village Water and Electric Plant and next to Tower Road Park. The property is located in the R2 single-family residential zoning district, and it is bordered by the same. As you can see on the map, the lot is trapezoid shape with a front line that runs along Sheridan Road, and that front line is narrower than the rear lot line that runs along the east property line. These images are taken from Sheridan Road and Tower Road, looking at the location of the proposed pickleball court, which would be located on the other side of the wrought iron fence that you can see in these photos. The pickleball court would measure 37 feet by 61 feet and provide a corner yard setback at 13 feet from the south property line along Tower Road, whereas a minimum setback of 50 feet is required. Thus, a variation of 37 feet is being requested. The plan also includes installation of 2 light poles on the south side of the court that would be 20 feet in height and would contain external glare shields. The applicant has provided this example of a pickleball court to illustrate what they are proposing. The light poles are there depicted in gray. So at its November 13th meeting, the ZBA considered the request. The ZBA only received one comment. That was a written comment that's included in your agenda materials. The members did discuss potential concerns regarding noise generated by pickleball courts, but noted that the issue before them is the location of the pickleball court, not the use itself. Those voting to recommend approval noted the unique shape of the property, the topography of the property, and the property's location immediately to the west of the village's water and electric plants. One member voting not to recommend approval noted that a pickleball court is not an essential amenity for residents, and the other member noted the location of the court in their mind could create safety issues in the street with flying balls not being contained within the site. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions now or after you hear from the applicant.
Yeah, Gary, this is yours, right?
Yes.
You want to add to that?
No, I think it was all pretty clear. We, at the time, we felt like after taking a look at where it could be located in relation to the site, the topography, the shape, that this was the only location for it to be. There was a lot of discussion about the court itself, whether a pickleball court is, one can have a pickleball court or not, but we were more concerned with the location of this amenity to the property.
Gotcha. Does anybody have questions for Gary? Go ahead.
Has the applicant reached out to the neighbors to, I realize that none of the adjacent neighbors commented, but has there been outreach to the neighbors?
We can address that to Joe Papanikolas, who is the owner. We noted that part of the application is notification of the neighbors in the, within 250 feet. That notification did go out, and obviously there was one person who wrote in, affirming it. Nobody else, everyone has the opportunity to comment on it, and there were no other comments on it.
Well, and I think we're a neighbor. You're a neighbor, right? I mean, so two of the neighbors are public.
No, I just,
I know.
I have a lot of experience with pickleball, so I'm just,
Oh.
just preparing, so.
Right, and Joe Papanicholas, good
Nice to
evening.
meet you.
The direct neighbor on Sheridan and Tower Road, they're aware of the project and
Okay.
they're supportive,
And
so.
they're fine.
Yes.
I'm
yeah,
sure you're planning on pickleball tournaments with them, yeah.
It's a pretty quiet area, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Our
I-
alternative in the conforming location would have required removing quite a bit of mature trees to the north, and we would have been closer to Access Road, heading down to Tower Beach, and so we feel like we're in the best location.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it. I just want to make sure you talk to your neighbors.
Other questions? We're quiet tonight. All right,
Oh,
thanks.
it's a good night in front of Village Council.
Maybe the dog will get a walk tonight. All right, thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me get back on my agenda here. Are there any public comments on this item?
Yes, this is why I came today, primarily. Hi, Ted Winchenko. So I don't begrudge you a pickleball court. I hope you have fun. But what I found fascinating in this application was the answer to question 3. The variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The proposed would not alter the essential character of the locality. The proposal would not alter the essential character of the locality. The court would be more exposed to the community if shifted north. The proposed location is private and tucked away. That proposed location is 13 feet off a public platted roadway owned by the citizens and the village. How is that more private? Well, it's more private because the village has for decades ceded that land to the private owners inappropriately. They have given up the public's right in that land. That land used to be a road which was used by semis to deliver coal to the coal chute at the thing. But when that stopped, the village came in, they narrowed the road well below a standard, whatever 50 or 60-foot roadway. They made it wiggly, they planted trees in the roadway, and now the owners next to it, they're great because they have a private driveway of village public land. No parking is allowed, no access to the deck over the coal chute is allowed. They have great panoramic views, and here we sit. And I don't begrudge you the pickleball court, that's fine. But the idea that everyone considers that to be the more private location when it is literally 13 feet off a public platted roadway owned by the village and its people shows the problem that we have with the public beaches all along the lakefront, not owned by the park district, but by the village, that are effectively closed and taken from the public by the lack of action or the intentional lack of action by the government here.
Would anybody else like to speak on that? Seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back up. Any comments here, folks?
Couple comments on this or thoughts. And when I first saw it, I hearkened back to all the articles we read over the past year or so about the noise of pickleball courts and the consternation that villages, park districts have had with communities around the area and around the country. And so I think that noise can be a factor with pickleball courts. And I was interested in the zoning board minutes where they, several of the members suggested that this was not precedent setting in any way. And I'm not sure if it is precedent setting or not precedent setting, but I'd be concerned about the precedent if everyone in Winnetka in their front lawn wanted to put a pickleball court in. I think we would have a problem, and I don't know how we would deny someone else from coming along just because this one is tucked in there, more private maybe than others. And I talked to Rob about this earlier, and I think it's potentially a little bit of an issue that we haven't gotten to that comes at us later on when it becomes a problem. And I could see this, there are other zoning issues we've talked about. We've talked about electric bikes down on Green Bay Trail, and do we regulate those properly? Do we have any issues down there? These things just kind of happen. And so I don't really have a problem with this one, but I do have a problem with what it might suggest in the future. And so I just wonder whether or not we end up, or not we, the village council someday ends up with some regulations in terms of pickleball usage, whether it's regulations on time of use, lighting, landscaping, whatever it might be, whether or not an approval tonight, whether that particular pickleball court would be, future regulations would apply to that pickleball court. So if we said, we don't have any restrictions so far as I know. You could go out at midnight and go play pickleball, and that may not be a problem at 889 Sheridan, but it might be a problem at 583 Arbor Vitae. Or on Spruce Street, or anywhere else in town that might have a pickleball court. So, and I guess I asked this of the village attorney, whether if this was approved, can it be in the ordinance or resolution or whatever we're doing here to have future regulations, if they ever come forward, be memorialized to be applied to this pickleball court?
I think my answer to that depends on what those regulations are. Are you suggesting that if a future regulation prohibited this, the applicant would be required to remove the pickleball court?
No, I think it would be usage of pickleball courts. I think if we approve it, it's there, it's grandfathered.
It can't be lights, let's say, that might be one, no lights.
Timing of
Right.
usage.
So those could apply.
So that would be my suggestion. I don't know if that would be a burden to the applicant. You could decide if that's a burden to the applicant, but I think this is just one of those issues that rears its head down the road as a problem, potentially.
I don't have a problem with it because I think it's I think with the variance in this particular situation, it's a very unique lot, right? It's flanked on either side by, and so long as the neighbors are okay with it. We don't regulate basketball, right? I have a neighbor whose kid is out there playing, shooting basketball hoops like at midnight with his buddies yelling. We don't regulate front yard hockey rinks, right? Some people put those things, they really trick those things out and it becomes, I guess, I'm concerned and I think it's one of these things, but I'm not worried about the precedent, and I think the more opportunities that we can create for, if it's consistent with those sorts of uses, that we don't regulate, I don't think, right? We don't regulate when people can play basketball, or certainly somebody could be playing pickleball on their driveway right now. In fact, I think one of my neighbors does that. That's not what I was referring to as having a history with pickleball. But anyway, I think I'm okay with it. I don't know if I want to regulate those. It makes sense, Bob, I get it, but we don't regulate other similar activities.
Rob, you were going to jump in?
I was just going to say, those activities that aren't regulated, such as shooting hoops, whenever we've had complaints about that, it's usually handled under the nuisance code, nuisance ordinance, a public
noise,
nuisance, a noise ordinance. And those are handled on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I agree with the points Bob made, but I also, I'm going to bring it back to just sort of specifically what we can act on here, which is a request for a zoning variance. Several things concern me. One is which I'm looking at the diagram, the entire pickleball court is in the variance area, to use that term. If I'm looking at where the front yard setback should be, 100% of it is outside where it should be. That's a huge ask. I mean, having been on zoning and now as a trustee, we've turned down people who've needed just to bump out their garage into that kind of area in the front yard, or at mudrooms and sort of some real essential parts of, maintaining a home in our area. I don't think this is an essential part of maintaining a home to help it retain its value, looking at the 8 standards which it has to follow. So I don't feel it meets standard 1, that the property can't yield a reasonable return if permitted to be only used under the conditions if they had to move the pickleball court. Certainly the lot is unique, but again, is it essential? It says, would that alter the essential character of the locality? I do feel that putting a sport court right there 13 feet from the road is altering the nature of the locality in the front yard. I mean, people are used to seeing those kind of things in their backyard. Their swimming pools are not in the front yard. Their tennis courts aren't in the front yard, but this is in the front yard. And then in the terms of the number 8, the 8th standard that does refer to the health, safety, comfort, morals, and welfare. Health, safety, comfort, that does venture into a little bit of the noise factor. That is, I was reading today dozens of articles. Cities all over the United States are wrestling with this issue of pitting neighbors against neighbors because of the noise. So perhaps having it set farther back. Many communities now, I guess, are requiring any pickleball court to be 100 feet away from any house. And I don't know if this would, given this location, if that would meet it. And certainly we don't have that zoning ordinance in place or any limitation like that. But I do feel that potentially is an issue. So net, I don't think that this variance request is met for the 8 standards that we look at when we decide whether or not to approve it.
Bridget?
When I first read this, I was mostly surprised. When I first read this, I was mostly surprised. I'm like, oh my gosh, can we have pickleball courts? Because they are kind of a nuisance. However, we can apparently. Or if you have the space and the setbacks and such things, we don't have a rule saying you can't. And we have tennis courts, and I don't know how all of these things end up regulated. So I was a little bit worried about setting a precedent, as Bob said. However, then I thought about it, and I don't think what we're saying is that a pickleball court is, now allowed anywhere. This is a sort of odd-shaped property tucked back with one side, along the village mechanics and on a quieter road. And importantly, the only neighbor that said anything said that they have no problem with it. If any neighbor within the 250 feet said they had a problem with it, I would take that very, very seriously because, to Kim's point, it's not like all of these are necessities, but it seems like a fun thing to do outside, and we don't have a rule against it. And I was thinking, you're in trouble if you have houses that are closer together that want to do this, but probably somebody doesn't want to put a permanent court up if they have a standard lot, because that would take up their whole lot. And certainly everybody can play in their driveway right now. So I wouldn't, if we were ever going to be discussing pickleball courts in general, I think I'd be like, oh, we should be careful because there are articles all over the place about the noise and the things people have to do, but that's not what we're here discussing, and we don't seem to have a flood of people coming in asking for this. So I think that I would be okay with this given the unusual lot and the fact that the neighbors were okay with it.
Great,
Can I
thanks.
ask one follow-up question?
Sure, go ahead.
David, one of the things that's shown on the diagram here, and it wasn't really addressed in the package, is the sanitary service and electrical service. Is there any problem with building a structure like this over those? I mean, if they need to get at it, they have to, just like we'd have to dig through an asphalt driveway to get to that kind of service, isn't that exactly the case here? Or is there some downside to building over it?
Well, these are private service lines. They're not public utility
Okay.
lines. Private utility lines are constructed under parking lots all over, in commercial developments, and the like. I mean, in our downtown, we have utilities under pavement. It becomes more of the practical issue, if there is an issue, getting to them.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So
Kirk,
it-
we haven't heard from you. Oh, I'm sorry, Kim.
No, so it could be moved north somewhat even.
When I reviewed this application, I don't have any concerns about pickleball. I don't have any concerns about all these, folks adding these amenities to their properties. The question I have, and I don't want to step in the shoes of the architect or the homeowner, but is that the most appropriate location relative to the ordinance? And I understand the idea of hardship and trying to protect landscaping, but was the request done out of the ideal convenience of the homeowner and not out of consideration for attempting to, meet the ordinance per se with the setback? Could there be another spot? And I don't know the property well. I've walked by it a number of times, but is the, on the page here, within the setback, let's say to the right of the house, towards the lake, could that work as a compromise? Putting it over, or at least centered on the entry of the house, pushing it to the north? Is there a compromise that could be made so at least as a village, we're trying to uphold the purpose of the ordinance, which is to prevent structures. The setback is there for a reason. And I agree with the comment about if there's been consternation about folks trying to add to their livable area, the use of their home instead of an ancillary, more of a recreation use. So that would be my request, would be to ask the applicant if there could be a compromise and they could find another location. I'm not necessarily opposed to anything that encroaches within the setback, but I feel as though it's placed at convenience for the homeowner and not necessarily in the best interest of the neighboring community.
So I mean, like 100% of it's in the area.
Right. I just feels to me like there's other potential locations, even if it goes over the services to the house. I'm a fan of saving trees, not suggesting that they knock down beautiful old trees, but it would be interesting to, or at least have a study to see what other locations were considered.
Well, I have a question for David. Kirk, you kind of brought something up. I was sitting here looking at the matrix. If somebody was to come in and just want to pave this area, just do an asphalt box that's 37 by 61. Would somebody seeking to do that in this exact location, would they be required to go through this process? Much to Tina, your basketball thing got me thinking, so.
And what is the purpose of the?
It's just pavement.
If somebody wanted to put.
Never mind the purpose.
Impervious
Well,
surface in the.
It's just an
in the
impervious
front yard-
surface
in the
that
front
they might
yards,
use for
back.
anything. They might use it for foursquare, they might use it for sunbathing, they might use it as a patio, I don't know.
They could do that, yes.
And would they be required to go through this process in
No.
order to do that? So what makes this different?
The court is not allowed in a required corner yard.
The
The use is not allowed in a required corner yard.
Say again, I'm not getting this.
A racket court, a tennis court, a pickleball court is not allowed in a required front yard.
Oh, so there is something that talks about
The use.
About sport
Not
courts.
the pavement. We're not talking about the pavement. We're talking about the use cannot go in a required corner yard.
Okay, come on up, Gary.
So, just.
Defend-
Well, just.
defend the
I
location.
have a question about that. So if it was just paving, if it was, we decided we needed more parking because we have 4 cars and only 3 of them fit, and we need more space, we would be, and as long as we meet the drainage grading, store, water and everything like that, then we could actually just do that there. The only thing that would be precluded would be the lights, for example, right? But we could use that for.
Not use it as a pickleball.
Right, but we could use it for parking, we could use it for sunbathing, we could use it for, if it was,
Gary, just know that David cleared me up on that.
right.
I'd like to hear you defend the location.
Okay, so the location. So, the location, is this a laser? Yes.
We can't see it, though.
I know, I'm gonna, I don't wanna point, okay, there we go. So, what I wanna point out is that, so this area right along here, this is, all trees right here. And it slopes from south to north. So there's about an 8-foot grade differential in this area right here. So, in order to go.
Hold on 1 second, Gary.
Yeah.
Is there a cursor that he can use on this?
Oh,
Because half of our council can't see what you're
oh,
doing.
okay.
For it to show up.
Oops.
No.
How do I go back a page?
Just go back to
There we
right
go.
there.
Is it,
Just move your cursor around that.
Or you can use the.
There you go.
okay, perfect.
Can you guys see
There we
that
go,
okay?
there we go. Okay, so right along this location right here, this whole north side, it's steeply sloped. So to put anything where beyond the trees are beyond to the north, would create you'd have to put retaining walls in, take all the trees out, put retaining walls in. It would be quite costly to do that. The next location that you might be looking at is this location right over in this corner here. And there are several 30-inch, 40-inch?
Yeah.
30-inch, 40-inch, very mature 100-year-old trees that are in this location right here. So this location right here is a non-starter unless we want to start taking trees out. If we were to move the court to the north, and we would basically have to pivot from this corner. Wait a second, we would have to pivot from this corner, and we could go like this in here, but by pivoting it, we're not really gaining anything. We're just
Well, you are taking a portion of the court out of the setback.
yeah, out of the setback. At some point, is 85%? I mean, you might say 85% is better than 100%.
I think we have some trustees who think that way.
Right, but, so if you want to pivot it, I suppose we can talk to Joe and see what he has to say. Along the south line, it's all trees. So as far as the location is concerned, we took a look at it, couldn't go on the north side, couldn't go on the west side, can't go on the southeast corner, so that was the only location that was left for it. So as far as location was concerned, that was the best location for it.
And I can add a couple of things.
Okay.
My name is Aaron Berger. I'm the owner's civil engineering consultant. In addition to everything that Gary was explaining, there is a kind of triangle that would be a conforming location theoretically, but the setback for the side yard on the north side of the property down to the access drive towards the Tower Beach, that setback line is significantly located inside of that mature tree line. So anything that we'd be able to get even outside of that setback line would still be requiring a significant amount of demolition of landscaping that provides a ton of really, really nice screening for that pretty busy access drive down to the facility. And as far as where it's situated, where it is, understanding that, you know, like Gary said, we're not going to be able to stay out of it. There are the existing utilities, you know, the existing electric and sanitary lines serving the house, in addition to a very prominent sanitary manhole that's located where it stands right now, about 10 feet north of the north side of the court. Just figuring, hey, this is a pretty well-screened area that doesn't have any existing obstructions in it on the lot. Keeping that playing area safely clear of that utility structure, just from a safety standpoint, was a big priority of ours laying it out. And it just so happens that when you consider the 13-foot separation from the lot line to where we have that clear space for the court and the 37 feet width of the court, that it just coincides with the 50-foot setback.
I have one comment.
Yeah.
And with regards to the north, I mean, taking the mature tree line down on the north, I mean, we just love all the oaks on our property. It's such a beautiful elevation there. We have zero interest in disturbing that tree line. And the access road to the beach is living there now for well over a year. It's an extremely, extremely busy pathway. Walkers, bikers, vehicles. And to put that court in that conforming location to the north, besides the fact of removing that tree line, the amount of ball activity and the potential activity of balls flying over the fence down on that access drive with all the pedestrians, it's a non-starter for us. So that's kind of how we ended up shifting it there to the south. And then the actual southeast corner, we had fully designed a court in the back, but that would have required taking down 4 or 5 significant oak trees. And we submitted it, and then we ultimately pulled it from being reviewed, just because we chose to keep those oaks in the back. So that's how we ended up with the location that we did.
Okay.
So.
You know, Gary brought up an interesting, thanks, guys. If they were to, looking at the diagram that we have up on our screen, if you were to take the upper left corner of the court and rotate the court so that it was parallel with the existing 800 amp electric service, see that, and rotate it, it wouldn't take it fully out of the setback, but would that be a reasonable compromise?
I feel like what we're hearing is it's all or nothing. It's either completely north and take out all the trees, or it's completely south. And I think there's a middle ground there.
Right.
That's why I asked about moving over the electrical, like I was saying, you just see electrical service still out of the way of the trees, but significantly less.
Well, would the pivot kind of be a decent compromise? Maybe scooch it a little bit?
It's the professional term.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
I mean.
Oh, hold on,
Okay, go ahead.
we're talking now.
Go ahead.
What do you guys think?
I think it'd be a good compromise. I mean, it might be helpful if they're going to do that to come back and actually show some photo evidence or engineering documentation showing where the manhole cover is. I actually came into the meeting saying, it looks like fun. And I like the idea. I like the
Does look like
location.
fun.
But after hearing the other comments, like, in terms of setting precedent, and I think we have a unique lot here, but what is to prevent other homeowners from, you know, if this is all the rage, right?
Yeah, but again, precedent, we aren't setting precedent. Every case stands on its own. Let me just throw something out there. What if we were to go ahead and introduce this with the proviso that a portion, a reasonable portion of the court is moved within the setback? And then you guys got a couple of weeks to think it through, Gary, and come back to us, and at least that way we can move it to the next level without kicking them out and making them come back again and go through this?
Yeah, we've discussed it just now, and we're not opposed to rotating it.
Okay.
It just so FYI, the manhole is right about. It's right about here. Is where the manhole is, right where the top of the pointer is.
That's for
That's where there's an existing.
storm?
A sanitary manhole.
Sanitary?
Yeah, sanitary, and there's a sanitary line that runs,
You-
it runs.
Yeah, I see the sanitary service, we
Yes,
see that.
Yeah, so it runs in this, in this direction and connects.
Well,
So it looks like we could rotate it about.
About,
ten-
5 to 10 degrees.
5 to 10
well, we would
degrees.
we would like to introduce this so
Yeah,
that
great.
we can keep things moving.
Perfect.
We would also like you to come back with something that moves a substantial portion of it, a reasonably substantial portion of it, out of the setback and within. And then when it comes up for adoption, if we like what we see, we can pass it, and if not, we can table it and do
Yeah.
it again.
Well,
But that keeps the
we'll-
conversation going.
We'll move it we'll rotate it as far as we can.
But I think we have to see it, and we're
Yeah,
not gonna
yeah,
sit here
no,
doing
that's- no, I-
sketches
I
in
understand.
council.
We'll come back with a proposal that, when you say, you had mentioned, it sounded like you wanted it to be a very great degree of movement. We'll move it as far as we can, so that it accomplishes the 80% or.
You're a good architect, you'll figure it out, Gary.
Exactly. I would like to just address the precedent part of this. So, I'm not sure that it necessarily sets a precedent, because the lot, this is a crazy lot. And because it's a crazy lot, that in itself limits the location of where it can be. You're not gonna be putting a pickleball court in a rectangular, if you were to get a request for a pickleball court on a rectangular lot with no utilities in the way, nothing in the way, and somebody wants to put it, in the front yard or the side yard, I mean, it's because it's a rectangular lot, you either can do it or you can't do it. Here, because the lot is a crazy shape, I think that in itself says to you, well, it's not setting a precedent because the lot in itself is creating the hardship. A rectangular lot, we all know not to come in here for a variation on a rectangular lot with no encumbrances. So we're aware of that.
Oh, we see those.
Well, Gary knows. I know, but Gary knows, don't even come in here for a rectangular lot because it doesn't meet any of the criteria. Here, we have a lot of criteria that allows you to say, yes, this is okay. On a rectangular lot, no, this doesn't make sense.
Well, our village attorney has advised us time and time again that, in a variation, it sets no precedence because every variation request stands on its own. So there might be a perception that there's by somebody else who wants it, but the reality of it is we aren't setting any precedent for future applications.
Chris, can I just?
Go ahead.
comment that? Just, and again, and I don't know, I think that it's possible that this issue of pickleball usage, private usage, which is going around the country, could come right into our town here, and down the road, we might introduce some stipulations with regard to pickleball usage. And Peter, I don't know, and I just want to understand this, if this court were to go in, and right now there's no time limit to use it, turn the lights on, they can use it at 1 a.m. in the morning, just like the basketball players. If down the road, the Village of Winnetka puts some regulations, some stipulations in terms of usage, would that apply to this pickleball court, or the fact that it was approved in 2 weeks, grandfather it?
If the council at that time wants it to, legally it can.
Say that again?
If the council at that time wants to apply it to existing pickleball courts,
Then you could do
it
it.
has legal authority to do that.
Okay.
We don't have to grandfather.
No, okay, that's good to know. The other thing, and it kind of gets to Kim's point on the burden and so on of the lawn and the property shape and so on. I mean, I don't know what's in the backyard. I think there's a pool in the backyard.
You can see, yes, there's a pool.
And what else is back there, Gary? Is that
It's a
putting,
pool- a pool-
golf, something other?
A pool, it's a pool deck and what do we have back there? The,
Putting
Yeah,
area. So,
putting
I mean,
area, yeah.
you could have a pickleball court in the backyard. I mean,
Well-
I know this is the remaining piece of the property that can accommodate the pickleball court.
You couldn't get the pickleball court in there, in that location, without taking down all the mature trees.
Given what's there today.
Given what's there now.
I understand
Yes,
that.
yes,
I understand. This
yes.
is the remaining portion of a pretty good-sized lot.
Yes,
That can
yes.
accommodate a pickleball court.
Yes,
I
correct,
get that.
yes.
Is it an undue burden? You know, I don't know if it is.
It wouldn't, yeah, it wouldn't.
So, again, I think this location is probably as good as, I mean, not the location on the lot, but I'm just saying, this property
Yes.
from a privacy and noise stand is probably as good as it gets because you don't have that much around it. I understand that. But I do think that this village and others will be looking at this issue down the road. And if everyone wants to have a pickleball court, we're going to have probably an issue on our hands. So anyway, good.
Well, if the Park District would build some pickleball courts, we wouldn't have this problem.
Why have they not done that?
Well,
Write it down.
and I was just thinking, how many underutilized tennis courts do we have in town, right? And those can easily be converted into 4 pickleball courts. So, I mean, there's nothing to prevent those people that have got those old,
Just up the street.
yeah.
on
I mean,
Tower.
I'm thinking of some friends who don't use their tennis courts and they could create 4 pickleball. I mean, it is probably, we could probably think about the enhancing if it becomes a real problem, the noise restrictions in time, yeah.
All right, well, let's see if we can get some business done here.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Apologies, if I may, I would like to ask a question just as a point of clarification.
Sure.
Maybe for David or for the village attorney. If we are going to be moving forward here, like we've talked about, pivoting the court, rotating it a little bit so that we can get more of it out of the setback. If we are pivoting off of, say, that bottom left corner, which is at the closest point, so that minimum setback still is 13, how would that materially change the variation request?
We
as
like
it's
it.
written? I just want to make sure that we're on the same
We
page
like it.
for how it comes to.
Yeah, top left.
Well, he's going to, it's the pivot point.
The top left is the pivot point. The top left.
So the
Figure
idea
it
is
out,
to
guys.
try to,
I mean-
the idea,
Yeah, I just want to understand.
yeah.
if-
So the
how
idea is
that
to try
addresses
to
what the
minimize
variation.
the incursion into the front yard setback,
Okay,
to minimize it, right?
understood. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's
So long as-
basically, go ahead, Peter.
The only thing I would caution is so long, and this isn't going to happen, but because of the notice requirements, we can't, we've noticed it up for what you've requested. So what you're pivoting now to can't add a new variation, and it can't increase what we've already noticed, which I don't think it's going to. That's the only
I
parameter.
don't believe that it is. So
Right.
13 is the minimum, and I just wanted to make sure that we're speaking the same language here as it pertains to the specific variation being requested. So thank you, I appreciate that.
Tilt it and move it north. And just to remind everybody is that village council is not bound by the same standards that the zoning board is, and we can, I don't want to be cavalier about it, but we can use common sense and do what we just did here to get something that is potentially a better outcome for the village and for the applicant. So, all right, could I have a motion to introduce ordinance number, I'm lost again here, Rob. Is it 20, is this it? M17, 2023, with the proviso that when they return for introduction, that they have moved a portion of the court into the setback area, and in an attempt to move it as far north as they can without creating more issues with the existing services or the landscaping.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Voice vote? Oh, no, it's a voice vote. Is it a voice vote? Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That was interesting. All right, where am I at now, Rob? I'm lost. Is this it? Okay. All right, item C tonight is ordinance M18-2023, granting a variation of the Winnetka zoning ordinance to allow the construction of an addition to an existing residence within the R2 single-family residential district, 717 Park Avenue, and it's up for introduction with the possibility of waiving it because we have a 6-0 recommendation from the zoning board. Council will consider a request from the applicant seeking approval for the construction of an addition to an existing residence, and David's back at the microphone.
Yes, the subject property is located on Park Avenue between Maple and Prospect. As you'll see here, the lot is irregularly shaped, with a curvilinear front lot line. Additionally, the topography of the lot is not flat. The elevation of the grade increases rapidly on the north and west sides of the existing residence, as illustrated in the contour map on the bottom right. The property is zoned R2, single-family residential. The lot is legally non-conforming lot in terms of its depth is 125 feet, while in the R2 district, 200 feet is the minimum lot depth requirement. These are images of the subject property taken from the street. The variation is requested in order to construct a few additions on the second floor and the attic level. The highlighted areas here in yellow are the proposed improvements within the required front yard setback. The red line represents the buildable area, or what the required setbacks are for the property. The darker hatched area represents the location of proposed attic and remodeling of the building. The existing residence is legal non-conforming with respect to front yard setback, as it currently provides a setback of 3.63 feet. The proposed deck and stairs would provide a front yard setback of a little over 2 feet. I would note that the majority of the deck would be located above the existing one-story sunroom on the first floor. The proposed improvements within the required setback are expansion of the primary bedroom suite and a new deck on the second floor level, and a new bedroom and bathroom on the attic level. These are elevations of the property. The ZBA also considered this one at their November 13th meeting. They found, given the configuration and features of the lot, as well as its location, the request was small, and recognized the extent to which the existing residence is non-conforming in regards to the required front yard setback. There were no public comments, either in writing or at the meeting. And I'd be happy to answer questions if you have any.
Questions for David? This is weird lot night. No-
There's no original building permit.
My gut tells me it was probably built during the war,
Yeah.
you know.
So I had to laugh at.
It is. All right, public comment. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Hi. And welcome. All right, I bring it back up here. Any comments, discussion, problems, questions? Any interest in moving this along to adoption? Okay, then we will do that, or we'll try. Do I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M18-2023?
So moved.
Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries, and now may I have a motion to adopt ordinance number M18-2023?
So, second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Orsic, Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Alvinson?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
That motion carries. Good luck with your new construction. We thought we were going to do with. Just don't try to build a pickleball court. All right, item D tonight is ordinance number M19-2023, granting variations from the Winnetka zoning ordinance to allow the construction of additions to an existing residence within the R5 single-family residential district. And this is up for introduction, possible adoption, as we have a 6-0 from zoning. Tonight, the applicant has requested approval for the construction of several additions to the existing residence, in addition to a window replacement and modifications. And David will go ahead and review this one for us.
Sure. The subject property is located on the west side of Abbotsford, south of Winnetka Avenue. The property is zoned R5, as are the properties surrounding it. Little unique aspect of this property. The lot itself is considered a corner lot due to the existence of an easement that was recorded when 3 lots outlined here in blue were subdivided. The easement is for a private drive for the owners of the 3 lots within the subdivision. Given the zoning ordinance defines a private street as the area lying within the limits of a right-of-way or easement for vehicular traffic, which area the owners or occupants of 3 or more lots have right to use. The area of the easement in this instance is excluded from the lot area of each lot for zoning purposes. Even though 88 Abbotsford currently does not utilize the easement, the recorded easement is still in effect, and as such, the area of the easement on the subject property is excluded for zoning purposes. The existing lot is a legally non-conforming lot that is approximately 4,900 square feet, where a corner lot in the R5 requires a minimum of 8,900 feet. Also, the lot has an average lot width of 37.5 feet, while the minimum average required lot width for a corner lot is 70 feet. We've included photos of the subject property in the materials. The variations are being requested in order to construct additions on the north and west elevation of the home. The additions are highlighted here in yellow on the site plan. The proposed additions represent a net increase in gross floor area of approximately 107 feet and an increase in roof lot coverage of 33.5 feet. As you can see in the excerpt in the zoning matrix from the agenda packet, the existing improvements currently exceed the permitted roof lot coverage and GFA. In terms of the corner yard setback variation being requested, the proposed addition would provide the same setback as the existing residence, which is 7 feet, whereas 9 feet. A minimum of 9 feet is required in this instance. The addition on the first floor would consist of expanding the existing mudroom by approximately 6.5 feet and expansion of the existing screen porch by 27 feet. The addition on the second floor would consist of expanding the primary bedroom by approximately 74 square feet. Currently, the second floor consists of 4 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The proposed plan would result in a primary bedroom suite, 2 bedrooms, and 1 hall bathroom, for a total of 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms on the second floor. The applicant also proposes to construct a covered front porch. The proposed porch does not require any zoning relief. The proposed plan also includes replacing a window on the first floor with these 3 shorter windows highlighted here in yellow on the south building elevation, and replacing windows on the second floor with 2 windows in a slightly different location, which are also highlighted here. These windows are located in a legally non-conforming south building wall. Therefore, zoning relief is required to allow structural changes in the wall, including new window openings. This is when zoning is fun.
I know, I thought the exact same thing.
The ZBA considered this also at their November 13th meeting. They thought the request was fairly minor, and given the uniqueness of the lot, they recommended unanimously approval. With that, do you have any questions?
Questions for David?
Just a quick question, that easement, is it being used by anybody for access? It doesn't look like it.
If I recall, I thought the property in the back, to the west, 404, could use it.
They don't have a curb cut on Winnetka Avenue? They do, so it's just a little circle?
Yes.
Interesting. Just curious.
Other questions? Okay, public comment. Would anybody like to speak on this issue? You want to come up and say hi?
I'm here. My name is Mike Vanachuk. I'm the architect on the project, and I really don't have anything to add, but I would gladly answer any questions.
Why do you suppose they built that roof like that?
Which one, the road?
Clipped roof. What the heck was that all about?
You know, I'm not sure, except when you look at it, the existing, it kind of balances the front a little bit, but
Okay.
that's the only thing I can come up with, kind of a symmetry thing. But that little part that's a roof leaks right into the closet. You know, and it has for years, apparently, so.
It's awful.
We'd like to clean that up. It's funny, as I was out taking photos and a neighbor came by and she said, I hope you're going to do something with that. It's like, okay, so.
As a comment, creative solution with the hip to roof.
Thank you.
Yeah, it worked out really well. And the interesting thing is this house is over 100 years old now, so this is kind of what we've always been about, right? Is about allowing these sort of small changes to happen without a lot of fanfare. So you guys all okay with waiving? Okay, so we'll go down that road. Okay, can I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M19, 2023?
So moved.
Second?
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. And then may I have a motion to adopt ordinance number M19, 2023?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote?
Trustee Orsick?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Alvinson?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. All right, item 9, old business, there's none. Item 10, new business, none. Appointments, I had some, but for some reason we can't do them tonight, so they'll be coming next week, or the next time we meet. 12, closed session, none. And adjournment, may I have a motion to adjourn? Voice vote, all those in favor? Opposed? We stand adjourned, thank you.